So you would say, you got to know first of all, when they're dropping like 260 Cherokee on you, and you're like, oh crap,
Yeah.
this ain't gonna happen right now. But
Yeah,
but there might
make
be
sure,
other stuff that
yeah, but then make sure that you've got that for the next time.
Mm-hmm.
One time I was in the Army band in Berlin, back in very early 70s, 70 to 72. And I remember sitting in with some guys at the jazz gallery, and I didn't play very well.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a guy there who later moved back to Kansas City. He was originally from Kansas City, Carmel Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was very candid. He said, so, you didn't have it tonight. Make sure you have it next time.
Mm-hmm.
Do whatever you need to do. And I did.
Mm-hmm.
I did. I wasn't going to go through that again.
Yeah.
So, the next time I came, I brought it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was ready to go. So that's, those are learning experiences.
Mm-hmm.
You got to do that. Got to go through that.
That's like, I've had that too before with students, where that guy came at you with a certain kind of intensity of comment there, and it sounds like you didn't go shrivel up and die.
Yeah.
You went, all right, and you stepped up and made the failure into a positive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very, very direct with my students too about those things. I will tell them, especially the ones at UMKC who have career aspirations, and really anybody that has a career aspiration, they see a little different side of me than somebody that wants to come in and improve their snare drum chops in marching band or something. Those people, whatever they want to get out of it is fine. But you start making career noises, and you are not prepared a couple weeks in a row, and I'll say something like, I don't see a future musician here.
Mm.
This is not what a future career musician looks like.
Mm.
So-and-so, that's what a career musician looks like. And
Wow.
he's practicing 3 hours a day.
Wow.
You're not practicing that much a week. So
That
it's not that you're wasting my time, you're wasting your time.
Mm. See, I love that, and I had a guy in college. He taught the art of theater class, and he said that to because it was just like a regular for all the non theater people, for them, and he basically told all of us, he's like, man, the theater people that I have come in here, sometimes I tell him, he's like, Broadway's ridiculous. You've got, he was like, to get there, it's nuts.
Yeah.
It's insane. Like, you need to do this,
Absolutely.
this. And he's like, and you know what some people say? They say that's mean, right? They say, as a teacher, you're sitting there and telling them, this is not, maybe not even telling them that you're not going to make it, sort of telling them, if you don't act up, you're not going to make it, which is maybe a similar message. And this is a whole different, political argument that you could make on this general idea, but is that mean, or is that...
I think it's mean to lead them on.
Ooh.
That's
I totally
mean.
agree.
That's mean.
Mm-hmm.
Mean not to give them expectations. I don't play God. I don't tell people what they can't do.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're not performing and getting something together where we can see a good end result in a year or two, then it's mean to say otherwise.
Wow. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And it's like tough as a teacher. I mean, we can go to teaching, I guess, now, but like, that's what I've been asking every teacher on here, is this idea of those kind of moments, and when I have that conversation, if I have that conversation, how I have that, that do I need to do the kick 'em, come to Jesus meaning kick 'em in the butt moment, do you,
Well, one of the things too, I really try to develop a personal relationship with all my students, regardless of what the outcome, the perceived outcome is supposed to be. What, just casually when they come in. So what do you do? What hobbies do you have? The high school kids, even the college students. What do you do when you're not doing this? So they know I'm on their side. I'm on their side. I want them to do well. So when I tell them, give them the tough love moment, they know that I'm doing it for them, not out of some kind of ego trip that I'm on, or I get off on demeaning somebody. I don't. I hate that.
Yeah.
And I don't demean people, but I'll tell them, this is not what a career musician looks like.
Wow.
In college,
I mean, that's
practicing 30 minutes a day, maybe. Come on.
Right. Yeah. Wow. What are like with your teaching? Because you said that you do kind of college age kids, and you have for a while, but you also teach private, right?
Yeah, I love to start kids out when they're like 10 years old, 9 years old even, and oftentimes I graduate those people from high school. I love that. I get them started in a good way, and they're learning proper techniques and what I want them to learn, what I think they should know every step along the way. So I have no problem with beginners at all.
So obviously that's going to be a range of ages all the way up to adult then, with college kids.
Yeah.
And like what I keep, and I'm sorry for everybody watching this, because I've been asking every teacher this, because I think it's the thing that all of us have the problem with, so I just want to go right to the problem spot, and is that I have a problem knowing when I need to do that come to Jesus meeting. And you were talking about this kid, and I think you maybe said the key, he's showing career aspirations.
Right.
And that's the problem that I think as a teacher that I'm not understanding, is I just want them all to do that. So I do the come to Jesus meeting with everyone, and I don't like
there's
read
varying
the student.
degrees. I just want people to get what they expect to get out of it. And maybe, like I said, they want to be good enough that they can play in the pit orchestra at school, or they want to graduate from bass drum to tenors or snare drum.
Right.
They have no expectations beyond that. When they graduate from high school, they will go to college. They may never play again, or maybe they want to keep playing as a hobbyist in a rock band or something. Great. That's perfectly good, and I'm perfectly happy with that. But like I said, if they have making career noises, then I just feel like I need to increase their expectations as to what they need to do.
Yeah. I'm sure you've had this many times. What happens when you have the kid in there because this happens all the time with me, and it kind of cracks me up, because I'll be like, well, what music do you like? And they'll be like, well, I don't know. Well, because they've never listened to music, they've been in orchestra, like they've been in orchestra for 2 years or something, that cracks me up.
Yeah. I don't recall that really ever happening. Sometimes, they give an answer that they feel like I want to hear.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, I listen to jazz. Really? Like whom? And that's when it's like, everybody.
Oh, everybody.
Well, like, name one. And then, it'll be something like totally predictable. Louis Armstrong or Duke Ellington, some name that everybody knows. Really?
What song do you like of them?
Which Duke Ellington album do you especially like?
Oh, well.
It's like, come on, and sometimes I'll go down that road with them up for a couple of minutes and say, listen, you really do need to listen to music. A huge part of this is listening to music. Find something you like. If you want to learn to play jazz, you've got to listen to jazz. And same thing about anything else, rock and roll. listen to that music.
Oh, yeah.
That's usually not a problem. Usually they are listening to rock. What I usually get is, people that want to expand their horizons a bit. Maybe they're playing rock and they want to learn to play jazz. And the first step is, these are some people you need to listen to starting now.
Yeah. Like yesterday. Yeah,
I
yeah,
want,
yeah, yeah.
and I mean, there's so much access to people. I mean, YouTube, Spotify,
Yeah.
you name it. You know, there is no excuse for not listening to people. So, you know, right away I'll give them some people to listen to as a drummer. Jeff Hamilton, for instance, a marvelous drummer that people usually haven't heard of when they're starting out, and then they go hear him play, and you know, it's like, wow, this is tremendous. How come I never heard of this guy?
Right.
You know.
Yeah, and I mean, with different drummers specifically, you'll listen to certain people, and you'll see the one guy, because this doesn't happen as much in classical. I think, at least from my experience, we all get kind of trained very similarly, and people have their tendencies, obviously, and stuff they're a little bit better at. But boy, in jazz, like, everybody sounds completely different from each other, and you'll have the guy that like is very tight and precise, and his pocket's good, and he's really, he's really like, exactly with the beat. And then you'll see another guy who's like sloppy and in the pocket, and then you'll see another guy that has like really interesting ideas, but his pocket is kind of, but his solos are like 1,000 times better than this guy.
Right.
But this guy's regular drum beat's way better than his,
Yeah,
like,
well, that's it.
yeah.
You know, study those guys and pick the parts out that you especially like, and start building your own voice.
Oh yeah, and like, and so back to the teaching stuff. Is there any specific thing that you've seen some younger teachers do, or even in the past, like you as a young teacher?
Yeah,
or?
one of the things that I'm not crazy about, and this is, of course, all these things are my opinions, but the world has been going more and more toward learning songs. And to me, that's a little like teaching to the test in a classroom situation. I have always taught rhythms. In fact, I've written a couple of books, which I actually intended to bring and go, but I didn't.
Plug them.
Well, essential rock for the drum set, and essential Latin styles for the drum set. The two books. So the rock book basically starts out with very basic rock beats, and then shows you how to develop them in complexity, one step at a time. You're just adding 1/16 notes to the snare drum, and then 16th notes to the bass drum, and just building on that. And they'll learn not an entirely new series of beats every week, but pretty orderly. Within 3 weeks or so, they're on to something completely different. And I just found that they learn so much faster that way. My philosophy is learn these rhythms, learn what they sound like. Let's then pick them out. Let's listen to a song, and you tell me what that drummer is playing. And then you learn whatever songs you want to learn, but you don't have to learn them. You just are playing them. And I've seen how much quicker they learn this way, rather than picking a song and then working on that song for a month. My God, they learn one song in a month? How about one song in 20 minutes?
Yeah.
That's in my opinion, that's what should be happening. But I see the other way more and more creeping in. I think that maybe my way is a little bit more of a gradual learning curve, and it's not quite the instant gratification. You're not maybe learning this Weezer song, but when you learn this first series of beats, it's like boom boom bap boom boom bap boom bap boom boom bap boom 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 bap boom boom. It's my Sharona.
Right.
Or doom doom bap doom doom bap. You've just learned a Weezer tune.
Right.
So that's the way I do it. I think it's just a much more effective way to go about it.
I totally know what you mean, because it seems like to me, and this is probably unfair to like the blues jams or blues bands, but like whenever I go to a jam, I mean it's slow funk shuffle. there's not a fourth. There's there's
Yeah.
rock tunes, but
Yeah.
but that would be maybe what you're kind of explaining is that don't go learn a song, learn how to do a shuffle.
Yeah,
Learn how
and
to
for
do a
sure you
couple
need to
of
learn
versions.
tunes. If somebody
Right.
calls a tune, you need to know what that tune sounds
Right.
like. I
Right.
I don't mean to imply that you shouldn't have a catalog of tunes that you
Right.
know. One of
But
the,
you're talking about learning a style sort of, and what I think's funny about the shuffle thing is if you learn how to play a shuffle, you got 800 tunes immediately.
Exactly.
Right? I mean,
and then listen to a bunch of them and see how what you know fits in.
right.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you add then now you've got the framework right, and then now you're just learning where the hits are,
Yeah.
or the stops or whatever in the
exactly.
I mean,
The
yeah.
form.
And so my question on that in regards to teaching is that I like to do that too, and we have tons of. I'm sure you guys have all sorts of little, the paradiddles and all this, individual stuff. For us, it's shifting, vibrato. Like there's all these little stupid things that you learn, and I want to teach that way too. I want to teach techniques.
Right.
Is sort of what you're talking about. I have a problem though, because you're fighting. Kid wants songs, you want technique, and then so is the key that you have to like make them buy into that. Is that the key, right?
That's one of the great things about having kids that start with you when they're 9 or 10 years old. You've got their trust, and so when you tell them, okay, I want you to do this, they just do it. And if they say, can we learn tunes at some point? Yeah, bring it in. Let's listen to it. By all means.
Yeah, and I don't know, with rock, I've noticed too that it's funny because I've done so many of these blues jams that you kind of have your as a drummer. I would guess there's probably way more to it, and I'm being mean here, but like you kind of do your shuffle, but there's not really many hits. At least at the jams, they just kind of do their shuffle and funk all the way through slow. But with rock, there's like hits, dun 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 dun, and then you go on to the chorus, and so like in that way, I would think like rock would be a lot harder than blues. In that, I mean, would you agree with that, or is it?
I think generally, yeah, it probably is.
Like the memorization part, I guess,
Yeah.
is remembering every single song, because there's
Sure.
songs that are pretty different, but boy, it seems like at the jams anyways, boy, you got your 40 shuffles that all,
Yeah.
it's kind of all the same song, like
Right.
you were saying,
Right,
and you learn
right,
your
right.
shuffle, and now you have 40 songs,
Yeah, I just like for them to, I'm a pretty Catholic teacher, meaning, I'm pretty, I don't do a lot of avant-garde techniques or any bizarre stuff. I mean, we start out on snare drum and they learn how to read. And I've also had the luxury of being pretty, fairly adamant in a way about what I do. I don't accept students until they've had fractions. Some people, will teach kids that are 5 years old, and that's great. If they get good results, that's wonderful. But that's not the way I do it. I want them to be reading music, and they can't really understand the divisions of notes that you divide a whole note in half, and you get a half note and a half note and a half. You get a quarter note, and this is how this works. If they don't have some very basic arithmetic knowledge. So, for that reason, I seldom, if ever, start a student before they're 9.
Yeah, that's interesting. My mom taught special ed 24 years, and she talks about that kind of idea all the time, and I'm pretty obsessed with that. About they can't get the song, and we're sight reading. Well, you can tell that it's kind of a rhythm thing. They sort of know where all the notes are, but it's a rhythm. So you're like, okay, rhythm. But I'm like, okay, so play me this. And they're like, oh, it's pretty obvious that they are not counting. Okay.
Yeah.
So now we got to go back to count. Like, there's all these stages before the stage.
I make them count out loud.
Yeah. But then I'm like, they can't read this. Oh, they don't even know that that's called a quarter note.
Right.
Oh, now we got to go back to quarter note day.
Yeah.
And then you just mentioned something else with the fraction thing. Well, they don't understand fractions, so that's why they're not in. So like, that's just blowing my mind, because
Well,
that's
the
one of those
beauty
stage
starting
before
them
the stage.
from the start.
Yeah.
You know, I can go with something that I know works. It's worked literally hundreds of times in the past.
Yeah.
And you know, from here's how you hold your sticks to here's how you make proper strokes, and then here's how we start to learn to read music, which happens within the first 2 weeks of instruction. You know, we start reading our first basic rhythms at the second week, unless they haven't practiced the first week. And then I said, well, I'm sorry you haven't worked on this, but you're going to have to before we can go on. So this week you need to practice, you know, which doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.